what we would like to have you do right now is begin to jot down any questions that you have that pertain to the Foundation High School Graduation Program, also known as House Bill 5, okay? And put those on the sticky notes, and staff will be coming around and gathering those during my presentation. And we want to take time at the end to address any of the frequently asked questions, because honestly, frequently asked questions come up frequently. That's why they're called that. Huh? How about that? But more often than not, multiple people have the same question. And so we think that that's really a great way to kind of handle some of the issues that some of you might be facing. And at the end of the PowerPoint, I'm also going to be directing you to a couple of resources. And one in particular will be where do you locate the responses to the frequently asked questions that the agency has actually prepared, and they have several of those documents. So let's go ahead and get started. And in doing this, we're going to be thinking about truly the benefits of the Foundation High School Graduation Program Plan. I have to be honest with you, when the legislation came through, Cindy and I were so excited. And I know not everybody was, but we were just so excited to see this transition. And of course, the focus on career clusters within the legislation, because we knew at that point that someone was hearing about the value of career and technical education and recognizing how important that is in a student's high school program. So I hope that as you all have started to transition, that you're starting to see the benefits, the value of the Foundation High School Graduation Program, especially in the role of career and technical education. So just to remind you, we have the Foundation High School program requirements that are on that right side that consists of 22 credits. And then, of course, the endorsement requirements add an additional 4 credits. And included in that is the additional math. And if a student is completing the STEM endorsement, Algebra 2 is required. But remember that Algebra 2 can be taken with any of the endorsements. And if a student is thinking about a particular college, university, they need to be researching that. And of course, if it is required for admission for their institution, then they should be taking Algebra 2 as a part of that endorsement process. And this is really important to have students understand early on. I think it's important for them to understand they need to take Algebra 2 before they take Algebra 1. And the reason for that is because we don't want anyone thinking, oh, I don't have to take it now. Yay, that kind of thing. They need to be really thinking down the road to their career goals, their college goals, college admission, and thinking about preparation. So just a reminder on that. And then on science, it's 1 additional credit, and then you have your career-related electives. But remember that you also have electives over on the right side. So when you are putting things together for your students, you have quite a few electives that are available for your students to really explore and grow. And then adding that distinguished level of achievement, what is involved in that, and if your students are completing Algebra 2, then they should be also receiving that distinguished level of achievement. Again, with every endorsement area, there is not one endorsement that is better than another, and one that is more college preparatory than another. I've heard that before, and we want to be thinking about all of our endorsements as preparing students for college and career. And then, of course, the performance acknowledgement, and that can be obtained in a variety of ways, and it is particularly important in career and technical education because of the certification and licensure options that we have for our students. So just a quick review on that. And a couple of other things that I want to point out to you, and hopefully these are some benefits to really reiterate to you. The first is that the Foundation High School Graduation Plan, one of the reasons why we were so excited about it is it really is looking at college and career readiness, that focus on career readiness, but really looking at it for all students and helping them all think about college and career. It provides a lot of flexibility for our students, and that's one of the things to me that is very attractive, and I'm sure it's very attractive for your students and a lot of your parents. in reality, it should be providing more guidance and counseling for our students. It's necessitating more guidance and counseling on the local level. The question is, will the local level answer that necessity in the way that they should, with increasing those services? If a student is going to be well prepared to develop the personal graduation plan, we do need to be thinking about an increase in services in career education and guidance and counseling. It also allows more local district control and decision making, and I think this is one of the things that has been requested for so long, and so the legislature heard that and put a lot of control back into your hands. And so in thinking about the development of your coherent sequences, that's all really in your hands now. And so there are materials and guidelines out there to help you with it, but really you're the one who determines those advanced courses. You're the one that determines those sequences. And so each student potentially could have a very different looking coherent sequence of courses, and coherent sequences of courses could look different from district to district, and even building from building within a district. So it's really up to the local district in terms of how you want to make those decisions. And then, of course, the one thing that we're really excited about is the concept of supporting individual career pathways. At the federal level, and we talked about this on Wednesday, that we have the 16 career clusters, and we also have this framework for career pathways. Our foundation high school graduation program fits very nicely with our model of a federal career pathway. And so the target, the bullseye, is skilled workforce. And so when we think about why we arrived at the Foundation High School Graduation Program, a lot of business and industry weighed in and said, we need a more well-rounded, well-prepared workforce. And so that's been our target for quite a while. And surrounding that, supporting that, knowledge and skills, and of course opportunities for our students. And opportunities certainly come from education, but they also come from business and industry and employer engagement. And we know in career and technical education, we do that well. And so continue to build those partnerships, because that really does support not only the concept of your career pathways, but it certainly supports the Foundation High School Graduation Plan. And then thinking about support services and making sure that those are at an optimal level to really support our students in a way that is preparing them for college and career. And then looking at that outer ring, and you see these things in the Foundation High School Graduation Program too. Articulation, alignment, we see that language in our pathways, our coherent sequences. Okay, so keep in mind that we really now have a wonderful vehicle for accomplishing a lot of the mandates that we face in education. Okay, the other thing that I want to remind you about is this concept of intertwined work and education. And this is a lifelong process, and students are going to have multiple entry, multiple exit points. They may work for a while and be in education simultaneously. They may seek education and then enter work, and then a little later down the path, they may move back into education. But it's a very fluid process, and it's very individualized. And again, the flexibility of the Foundation High School Graduation Plan is wonderful, because it supports this concept of really flexibility, but this lifelong learning and multiple entry and multiple exit points. I think this next slide also does a really good job of illustrating that. And so you may have a student who spends time for a while in education, and then maybe for whatever reason they may move out, they may move into a first-time career opportunity, etc. And to illustrate this a little bit better, I'll share a short story about my stepdaughter, Amber. When Amber was young, she identified a career goal of being a nurse. And this was something that she identified fairly early on. and has really stuck to this career goal. So in high school, she took advantage of the pharmacy tech program and looking at that certification, and she also took advantage of a CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant program, and when she graduated from high school, she was finishing up her credentialing to be a CNA, which then allowed her to work part-time. So when she graduated from high school, she was bound for Texas Tech. That was her number one choice. Very proud of her. But when Amber got to Texas Tech was a little bigger than she was anticipating. She graduated from a very small school, had less than 20 in her graduating class. Okay, so as you can imagine, a little overwhelming. Even though she had been on Tech's campus, it was still rather overwhelming. And of course, she was getting work experience as a nursing assistant, working in a rehabilitation nursing home, and was thoroughly enjoying that. But what we didn't realize is that Amber didn't really know how to study. And so her idea of studying was going to Starbucks. And we'd be like, are you studying? Yeah, I'm going to Starbucks. No, that's not studying. And so what we found was, and she actually realized this on her own, was that Tech wasn't really the best place for her, nor was trying to get into an RN program at that time. So she stepped back and actually went back to her community college and received her LVN credential. So now she's back in Lubbock, and she's working as a licensed vocational nurse, passed her exam on the first try, and so she is getting more experience, but now she's going the route of applying to be an RN at Covenant, and hopefully after being admitted to that program, then eventually will maybe come back to Texas Tech and complete her bachelor's degree. So she's kind of come full circle, but she's had a very different route. It's not this linear path, and a lot of our students are going to face the same thing. Amber knew from the very beginning that she was going to need to work to help pay the bills and support herself, but she also wanted to be working in an area that related to her ultimate career goal. And so eventually she would like to be a nurse practitioner. That is her long-term career goal, but she's got some steps that she needs to accomplish along the way. She's a very hard worker, and I know she'll be able to do that, and that's pretty indicative of a lot of your students. So just remember that we need to broadly prepare them for lots of opportunities and experiences, and when they have that credentialing available to them and take advantage of them, they have more opportunities for on-the-job experience, for jobs that relate to their career goal, and eventually arriving where they want to be. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about a career goal in the context of an endorsement. And I chose this one because this has come up a lot recently in our trainings. How many of you have students who are going to be doctors? Raise your hand. Okay, yep, all right. They're going to be doctors, or at least mom and dad think they're going to be doctors, right? That's kind of one of the other things that we see. Okay, so our sample career goal here is to be a physician, okay, and that's the type, they're going to be a physician, an MD. So if you were to recommend to a student the endorsement that they should seek to become a physician, what would you recommend? Oh, STEM, okay, all right. So I heard STEM, and that's usually a pretty common one, and it's usually the first response. So STEM endorsement, and of course, in thinking about STEM endorsement, one of the things that we really want to reiterate to them is the importance of science. So maybe building the science part of the STEM component, and that's where they really have their focus. Okay, so if you'll notice, I've put in 2 hyperlinks here because I want to take this opportunity to really look at what a post-secondary institution says about a pre-med degree plan. And some of you may not have even gone on a university website and looked at what are some recommendations for a STEM or for a pre-med major. Okay, so let me, hit the wrong one. So let's see. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up the site. I have this hyperlinked to Texas Tech. I'm sorry, it was just the one that I knew and it was easy for me to find. But all of them have information out there. And so as you know, there's really no pre-med major, right? You do understand this, that at the post-secondary level, there are, again, multiple routes, multiple majors that will lead you to medicine. And this is on the Texas Tech University website for students who are interested in considering the health field. And so when you look at this website, you'll notice some things that it gives advice on. So it talks about research your career of interest. Sounds pretty familiar. We've been talking about that this week. Talk to a professional who works in the career of interest. And look at this one. Get experience working in a healthcare setting. I think that's really important to reiterate to our students. Volunteer at a hospital or a health clinic, mentor with someone, learn basic skills such as CPR and first aid. Well, right there is an example of a value-added certificate that could be included in a student's program of study. And then here we go. We want to focus on biology, chemistry, physics, anatomy, and physiology. Okay, anatomy and physiology. And so those are our science courses, but let's not overlook some of our other things. It is recommended that individuals might think about healthcare services or health occupational classes. And even thinking about Spanish, and especially in the state of Texas, you're going to be treating a lot of patients who may not speak any English at all. And then one of the other things that I thought was interesting is really looking at all of these pre-health areas. And so when you start scrolling down the list, you start seeing all of these opportunities that some of our students may not have even been aware of, really reinforcing the concept of career development and career exploration. Okay, so that's one of the things that I wanted to point out to you. And then the other thing is, what is it that an actual med school is looking for in terms of admission requirements? Okay. And so this is Texas Tech's, this is on the health sciences side because that's where the med school actually is located. So you'll see here, this would be the college plan. Okay, this is what they're going to be looking for someone once they've completed their bachelor's degree and they've done well on the MCAT and gotten accepted. So they're going to really be looking at those heavy hours in science again, as a lot of you pointed out when you recommended the STEM endorsement. Okay, so keeping in mind what I showed you, okay, and I gave you a little clue when I hit the button by mistake, we know that there could be multiple ways of actually getting a student the experience and the coursework that they need. So what might be another endorsement area that would be a good focus for our students in thinking about their ultimate goal of being a physician? Okay, Ron said it. Business and industry endorsement, and in particular, what route? What do you think? How about agriculture, food, and natural resources? Might not be an obvious fit, but when I explain to you that we have a biotechnology pathway within agriculture, food, and technology, there is a program of study that actually, we have a program of study model for that. And even the animal systems, which sometimes is known as animal science. Those courses have a lot of science they would have a lot of science content really supporting students in those areas. And you can translate a lot of the information from animals even to humans, the whole cellular system and life cycle and so forth. So, believe it or not, you may have some students who are in agriculture, food, and natural resources, or could go that route, and their ultimate goal could be to be a physician, or they may even be thinking about being a veterinarian. I mean, that's usually the obvious one that we think of, but when we think about getting into vet school, it's very similar to getting into med school. Okay, so now there's also another endorsement that would be a good option for our students to think about, and that's the public services endorsement. So what do you think? What would be some options for our students in the public service endorsement? Okay, more broadly, what? Health sciences, yes. Health sciences, but you might not have been aware, even human services could be a good fit for some of our students. So let me talk about here just for a second. Thinking back to that website that I showed you earlier, what were some of the experiences that were recommended for students who were interested in going to med school? Volunteering, working, but also taking coursework in the health sciences area. And so I always find it really interesting that a lot of people immediately assume that the first option for an endorsement for someone who's interested in med school is STEM and science. But remember that there's some real value to experiencing health science professions courses because of that applied hands-on learning, and you're not sacrificing the science. Because again, if they're getting an endorsement, they're getting 4 credits in science. And so as a counselor, you're actually helping them to identify which of those science courses are going to be the best for them as they progress. And anatomy and physiology, we know, also fits within health science. So they could really have a very strong background and have some practical hands-on experience and maybe even get some licensure certification along the way that will allow them to do some things as they progress. I know of a lot of students who are interested in being an EMT first and using that as a stepping stone to med school because they know they want that practical experience of therapeutic services in an emergency situation. Some who even enter in nursing, they have an ultimate goal of becoming a physician. So again, thinking about the flexibility, the multiple routes that we have for our students. Now, for those of you who are in small schools, you may not have a health sciences program, but believe it or not, you can serve students who are interested in health sciences through human services because there would be some related courses that would be of value to them as well. And I come to this with my background in family and consumer sciences. Thinking about some of the courses that family and consumer sciences teacher teaches within human services, counseling and mental health, often overlooked when we think about medicine. Lifetime nutrition and wellness, very important. Thinking about nutrition and our current status of our country in terms of obesity and how do we combat this. And believe it or not, we may even think about enrolling them in child development, especially if they're thinking about being a pediatrician. When I was at the University of Kentucky in another life, I use this as an example because I think this fits here. I was actually asked to come to talk to the second-year med students about adolescent development because that's what they were covering that week. They were covering human growth and development the 1 week, their second year in med school. The first day, they had prenatal, infancy, then they had early childhood, then they had adolescence, then adulthood, and then the elderly population. So that was their 5 days. And in the morning they had development, and in the afternoon they had psychosocial development. So I covered psychosocial development of adolescents, a 3-hour lecture. And when you think about that in terms of a student's preparation, there is real value for laying a foundation for our students early on and allowing them to take some coursework that will support them down the road when they may not be able to take coursework. Most pediatricians get a lot of their experience when they're doing their residency and further down the road. But a lot of them, I suspect, haven't had a organized child development course, or maybe not even a human growth and development course, because there's so much content that they have to cover in a pre-med program. Imagine everything that you need to know in pre-med. There would be a very limited opportunity to teach the content that we could possibly teach at the high school level. So keep those things in mind as you're working with your students, because you may find that for some students, they're going to be more engaged by going the health sciences route than possibly the science route. And then, of course, our last option could be multidisciplinary, because you may have that student that really recognizes, I'd like to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, because I know it's going to all come together and help me be well-rounded. But in all of these, we have multiple endorsements and pathways. Science is an important part. And you're not shortchanging your students with that content by having different endorsement options. So again, this concept of flexibility, and I really want you to remember this example because I think it's one that's pretty obvious. You know, when we think about, well, it's not really obvious actually. When we think about med school, for many it's black and white, it's STEM, but then when you really start dissecting it, you begin to see that there are really different routes. So keeping in mind that whatever the career goal may be, and in this case it's physician, those career goals could actually be accomplished with multiple endorsements and multiple pathways. And this is where your local decision making comes into play, because a lot comes down to what you have available, the resources that you're offering your students. But think outside the box. Even in the traditional way that you've been delivering things, you may find if you're looking at something from a different lens that you can put some coherent sequences together that may approach the endorsement process in a different way than what you had originally planned. So just to kind of remember, students with this particular career, well, with any career goal, they should investigate the career and the options. They need to research admission requirements. I think that that's very important. If we're going to be talking about college and career readiness, the two need to be connected. And as students are looking at institutions of higher education, post-secondary education opportunities, they need to seriously analyze the admission requirements. And it may not just be the admission into the university, it might be the admission into a particular program, because those could be different. And students are not aware of that. And then, of course, select an endorsement area and a college major that they enjoy, keeping the post-secondary requirements that are in mind. And in this case, because of it being a physician, really stressing the importance of having advanced science credit, because that's going to be necessary for them to complete at the post-secondary level so that they have the credits and the foundation to make them successful in med school, as an example. So a couple of resources that we have here. I have included the link to the Texas Education Agency website where we specifically see House Bill 5 addressed and the Foundation High School Graduation Program. And you'll see here that you have an overview, but you also have links to a variety of resources, and on this page are the links to the two frequently asked, well, actually there are 3 frequently asked question documents, and those are extremely helpful. If you have not looked at those, you do want to take a look at them because they will answer a lot of your basic questions that are typically asked. And then there is the graduation toolkit. This is also available on the agency's website in a different location, though. It's under TEA brochures. You may not have been aware of the graduation toolkit, but another phenomenal resource, and it has the ability to print a document in English and in Spanish, and then of course because they are PDFs they can be easily duplicated on the local level. So there are parent brochures, student brochures, and they'd be really great for you to have to support your students as they move into that personal graduation planning process, answering parent questions as well. And then you're familiar with the Achieve Texas website. I've shown this before. We have programs of study that we have available, and the template that I showed you the other day, those will be available on there shortly, and it'll be here under the Programs of Study section, and those all will be reflective of the changes for the Foundation High School Graduation Program, and that will be that second tab that I shared with you. So I think at this time we probably want to entertain some questions, and do we have any questions that are floating around? Parking lot questions, anything that we need to answer? I have one. What is the current status of using the career preparation as the final course in the sequence? Because I know that was, currently you cannot. But what is the status on that now? Okay, good. So the State Board is going to be discussing that at the next meeting, okay? That's usually a frequently asked question that we get a lot of, so I wanted to throw that one out there first. So the career prep, as you probably know, since it didn't come up, cannot be that final course in the coherent sequence. It can be in the coherent sequence, of course, but it can't be the final course at this time. And the State Board will be opening that chapter and looking at that again and making some decisions on that. Okay,
I had a question. A lot of times we're finding it difficult with athletics to kind of give those students endorsements because, athletics is usually a 2-period block. And then once they finish with the foreign language and they find art, it doesn't really leave a lot of room for the principal's classes, especially in the 9th grade year, because most of them start 8th grade athletics, 9th grade, 10th. And we've had some kids that become a sophomore, junior, still needing to take a principal's course because they're in athletics, and then some of them do the career, so they're done, or they're in, the college technical or something. So it's just it's harder for those students to really get those principal courses early and get the other requirements the state requires as well.
Okay. Ron, do you want to weigh in on that?
So the issue that you're having is just one of scheduling then, is that my understanding? And, I guess that, this is kind of a hard line answer, I guess, in a way, but it may take taking a hard look at what your scheduling is in order to fit what the requirements of the graduation program entail. And, I don't know much other way to say that.
Any suggestions from the audience? Tally Joe, do you have something? Go ahead.
Do your students, are they required in both blocks? So it's not required? Is it in policy and procedures in the athletic? Who's going to punish them, UIL? Well, my husband's a varsity coach. Well, and so the reason I ask that is those are the questions that kids have to be eager and willing to ask. Well, but if they really want to be part of CTE, they have to be willing to stand up and drive their own personal graduation plan. So they want an endorsement. What endorsement track are they choosing? Because it's not just CTE required. Well, and when you look at all of your pieces, one of your things that you have to think about is that it's kid-driven, it's not athletic-driven, it's not band-driven, it's driven for what is best for a kid. So if a master schedule needs to be reworked, then that would be something I'd sit down with my athletic director, and the athletic director say, this is not what's best for a kid's education, this is what's best for a kid athletically, and if that's the case, then we may need to look at a double block.
Okay, good. Thank you, Tally. Hard question to address because it certainly involves local politics. And, Tally Joe's right. It is about what's best for the kids. And, we've talked a lot about CTE. And, I would even add endorsements are not just driven by CTE either. It's really about all of these pieces coming together. And we do need to think big picture. Okay?
Karen, we got another question here. Can you address how a district might handle students who move in their final year of an endorsement to a district that does not offer that endorsement?
Oh, now come on, you guys. I don't want to be out here on my own answering these frequently asked questions. It is a tough question. It is definitely a tough question. Well, a lot of it certainly depends on how much they have taken during those previous years. And, if you know in advance where the student is moving, maybe that is something as a counselor you can look at and maybe do some inquiries to help counsel that student to know what kinds of questions to ask. But of course, as they change, they may be facing some limitations and possibly earning the multidisciplinary endorsement. And looks like, do we have a comment or do you have a question? So, Ron, what would you add on that? Or Diane or Dale? Thank you. I was just, yes, yeah.
And not every course that was needed would be offered.
The Textual Virtual Network is one of the things I was going to suggest because I do think that there would be some options that way. And remembering that a practicum can be a final course in the sequence, and so it might be possible for, if the student knows and they can approach the counselors in the new district and advocate for themselves, there may be a way to set up a practicum experience for that student to complete that as well. So I would say it's going to have to be handled on a case-by-case basis, and it certainly would be dependent on where that student is transferring to. So, okay.
Got another one.
Okay, my question isn't necessarily CTE driven, it's more college driven, but we are, from what I understand, one of 2 districts that have completely, and we are not allowed to utter the words, so completely gotten rid of world geography. 100% do not offer it to any student. And the counselors and I have been to many, many, many updates at this point, UT, A&M, everywhere, and about half are telling us that they still absolutely require world geography as a requirement to get into their school. And so my question to you is, do you know if there's any talks of possibly changing that, or if, I know it's hard to get obviously all the universities on board as far as that goes, but we don't know what to do as counselors. We're so torn on what to do with our students who we know are college bound, but we're pretty much setting them up not to get into college.
And Ron, you had some, we had a few
yeah,
questions.
I've already answered this question, so we need somebody else to.
Well, share what you answered, Ron, because not, you did it, just the 2 of you, not everybody heard your response.
Well, so help me remember how I answered this. We're dealing here with a situation where, for one thing, the required curriculum indicates that that a school would offer world geography. That's one of the required curriculum courses. So, to say that we're not going to offer the course at all, I think is to really say we're not going to have any students enroll in the course more than anything else. That being said, that's still the issue. The issue is that we've got students here that are in a possible predicament of being admitted to college or not being admitted to college based on a decision that was made at their high school level. So, to me, I think that there has to be some influence of change at the local level, either through, parents or others that would support the idea of making a way that course could be possible at that level. And I forgot what else we talked about. What?
And that it's really hard to change what the universities are doing. That's not something that really that anyone has control over except for what the universities, and they all do different things as well. They all have different requirements.
Well, and Ron and I also had a conversation at lunch, is that, there is still a lag in the higher education institutions catching up with where you are. And it goes back to, in some cases, having some partnerships and informing individuals at post-secondary institutions, these are the standards that we are working under. And unfortunately, I'm not so sure that each of the post-secondary institutions have really caught up with the new foundation high school graduation plan and understand that they have students that are entering now. When I looked at a couple of them, they were still listing the 4x4, right, exactly. But yet last year, we could have had students graduate. And so I think that there is a little bit of disconnect there, and some of that's going to, as we discussed, maybe have to come down between some dialogue between the agencies.
Is there a board between TA and...
Is there what?
Are there liaisons between... You guys are going to have to answer that. So, okay? Other questions?
Who else?
Ways to manage students' physics instruction, and Principles of Technology is a CTE course that can be taught for physics credit for kids that might need a little more protected math environment as they study the physics concepts. And I just wanted to take a minute and give a shout out to John Ellis and his leadership in helping work through some issues related to the teacher credentialing process for the principals of technology teachers. There are some changes coming down the pike on that. Do you have a second to summarize them?
Yeah, first, so you keep updated on all these changes is to make sure that you sign up for those listservs that Shelley pointed out. Ours wasn't listed up there, but we do have a listserv that you can go to. But also, this change was also on the SBEC listserv, and it's a change that just was passed like a couple of weeks ago by the state board, is that Principles of Technology no longer requires you to have the 6 or 8 semester hours of physics, and also it doesn't require the TEA approved training.
As a district administrator, that used to be kind of challenging. Even our AP physics teacher didn't have 8 hours of transcripted college credit in physics alone. He had other wonderful credentials. But anyway, this allows you to credential folks in different ways. And each one of the program staff on behalf of CTE do a great job of just advocating for kids and districts in those regards. And while we were talking about all the programming, I just wanted to say thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I think maybe they all know about the Foundation High School Graduation Program.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Karen.
Thank you for your assistance, Ron. I appreciate it.